Welcome to Mognable, where we serve you with authentic news, stories, documentaries, updates, and magazine-style insights on our society and the larger world. And more importantly, about places that fall under the radar of the mainstream media machinery. We invite you to embark on this exciting journey of enlightenment with us. Mognable, your vehicle of enlightenment. Today marks International Women's Day. IWD, a global event celebrated every March 8 to honor the social, economic, cultural, and political achievements of women. It is also a call to action for accelerating gender equality. International Women's Day has been observed for over a century, yet many challenges still hinder women's advancement. Since 1911, IWD has belonged to all who advocate for gender equality, with celebrations focusing on raising awareness of discrimination and taking action to foster gender parity. The United Nations and world leaders are marking this year's IWD with discussions on both progress and persistent challenges. The theme for 2025 for all women and girls, rights, equality, empowerment, emphasizes the need to unlock equal rights, power, and opportunities for women and girls, ensuring that no one is left behind. This year also commemorates the 30th anniversary of the Beijing Declaration and Platform for Action, the most progressive and widely endorsed framework for women's rights worldwide. Now, let's share statements from global leaders. President of the 79th session of the United Nations General Assembly, Philemon Yang, acknowledged significant progress while noting that full gender equality remains elusive. He pointed out that while more women are entering parliament, progress is slow. The gender parity in legislative bodies may not be achieved until 2063. He also expressed deep concern over the continued vulnerability of women to violence, attributing it to entrenched social norms that normalize sexism and misogyny.
Gender equality and the empowerment of women and girls remain among the highest priorities of my presidency. Let me begin on a positive note. Over the past 5 decades, we have made notable strides in advancing gender equality. International frameworks, such as the Convention on the Elimination of All Forms of Discrimination Against Women, the Beijing Declaration and Platform for Action, and United Nations Security Council Resolution 1325 on women and peace and security have laid a strong foundation for progress. Women's representation in parliaments worldwide has nearly tripled, rising from just 10% 50 years ago to 27% today. Girls have greater access to education than ever before, and maternal mortality rates have declined alongside a reduction in child marriage to 18.7%. Today, domestic violence laws exist in 165 countries, and women continue to lead groundbreaking scientific advancements, including the development of COVID-19 vaccines. Across every sector, peace building, human rights advocacy, climate action, and the private sector, women are driving transformative change. It is fitting that we celebrate these achievements in a year marked by major milestones. This year, the 30th anniversary of the Beijing Declaration and Platform for Action, and the 25th anniversary of United Nations Security Council Resolution 1325, offers a moment to reflect on progress and honor accomplishments. It is also important to rally greater support for gender equality and women's empowerment, because we cannot afford complacency. These anniversaries occur in a disturbing reality. While we have made undeniable progress, full gender equality remains out of reach. The journey is far from over, and much remains to be done. And while we celebrate the growing number of women in parliaments, progress remains slow. At the current trajectory, gender parity in legislative bodies may not be achieved until 2063. Beyond legal barriers, economic and technological inequalities continue to widen. Millions of women remain excluded from the benefits of rapid technological advancements due to disparities in education and skills training. It is a tragic and enduring reality that women remain disproportionately vulnerable to violence. This state of affairs is fueled and reinforced by social norms that normalize sexism and misogyny. 1 in 3 women, approximately 736 million, has experienced physical or sexual violence in her lifetime. Moreover, conflicts worldwide inflict some of the gravest violations of women's and girls' rights, increasing their vulnerability to conflict-related sexual violence and exploitation.
United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres, speaking at the United Nations General Assembly, warned that women's rights are under attack and launched the Gender Equality Clarion Call, a bold and urgent pledge to defend the advanced women's rights globally. Guterres highlighted growing challenges, including digital threats that silence women's voices, amplify barriers that fuel harassment. He also warned that women's bodies have become political battlegrounds, with online violence often escalating into real-world harm. He stressed that the United Nations would not stand by as progress is reversed and urged systemic change through concerted action.
Excellencies, dear friends, thank you for the invitation and for the moving performance. We gather today not just to celebrate the International Women's Day, but to move forward, resilient, united, and unwavering in our pursuit of, and I quote, equality, development, and peace for all women everywhere in the interest of humanity, end of quote. Those are the first words of the Beijing Declaration. And this year marks the 30th anniversary of that landmark conference and its reaffirmation that women's rights are human rights. Since then, women have broken barriers, shattered ceilings, and reshaped societies. More girls are in school, more women hold positions of power, and digital activism has ignited global movements for justice. Yet, these hard-fought gains remain fragile and far from enough. Age-old horrors, violence, discrimination, and economic inequality still plague our societies. Every 10 minutes, a woman is killed by her partner or a family member. 612 million women and girls live under the shadow of armed conflicts, where their rights are too often considered expendable. Less than 2/3 of women worldwide participate in the labor market, and those who do earn far less than men. At this pace, eradicating extreme poverty for women and girls will take 130 years. And as we see in every corner of the world, from pushback to rollback, women's rights are under attack. Centuries of discrimination are being exacerbated by new threats. Digital tools, while brimming with promise, are also often silencing women's voices, amplifying bias, and fueling harassment. Women's bodies have become political battlegrounds, and online violence is escalating into real-life violence. Instead of mainstreaming equal rights, we are witnessing the mainstreaming of chauvinism and misogyny. We cannot stand by as progress is reversed. We must fight back. Last September, member states adopted the Pact for the Future. And the Pact reminds us that equality is the engine of progress of all people, and that Agenda 2030 can only be realized when all women and girls enjoy their full rights. It calls for greater investment in the Sustainable Development Goals, expanded debt relief and stronger support from multilateral development banks so that governments can invest in what their people need: education, training, job creation, and social protection that can help drive equality for all. And the Global Digital Compact calls for closing the gender digital divide, pushing back against online abuse, and ensuring women and girls everywhere can access the benefits from the opportunities of a rapidly evolving global economy. Meanwhile, we are also working to end the scourge of violence against women and girls. Through the Spotlight Initiative, the UN and the EU have shown that comprehensive approaches to eliminating gender-based violence can work. We have helped keep 1 million more girls in school. We have helped prevent 21 million women and girls from experiencing gender-based violence. And across 13 Spotlight Initiative countries, the conviction rate for gender-based violence has doubled. These achievements prove that when we unite behind ambitious strategies, we can deliver real change. But our work is far from over. We must never accept a world where women and girls live in fear, where their safety is a privilege rather than a non-negotiable right. Excellencies and friends, leadership on the International Women's Day belongs to us all. At United Nations, we have achieved and maintained gender parity among senior leadership and resident coordinators at world level since 2020. And for the first time in our organization's history, we have also reached parity in international professional categories. This proves once again that systemic change is possible with concerted and determined action. Today, as part of the UN system-wide Gender Equality Acceleration Plan, I'm proud to announce our commitment to the Gender Equality Clarion Call, a bold, urgent pledge to defend and advance the rights of all women and girls. The Clarion Call sets out 4 priorities. Unified leadership. All UN leaders must champion and defend women's rights in every decision and in every forum. Action against pushbacks. We must actively confront backlash, prevent rollbacks, and create spaces where women's rights can thrive. Coordinated impact, working across sectors and all levels to dismantle systemic inequalities, and protecting human rights defenders, as we will defend and amplify the voices of women on the front lines, standing firm against those who seek to silence them. This Clarion Call and the Gender Equality Acceleration Plan must drive real political change in all that we do.
The Gender Equality Clarion Call sets out for key priorities. 1. Unified leadership. United Nations leaders must champion and defend women's rights in all decisions and forums. 2. Action against pushbacks. This means actively confronting backlash and preventing rollbacks on gender equality. 3. Coordinated impact. Working across sectors to dismantle systemic inequalities. 4. Protecting women human rights defenders, supporting and amplifying the voices of women on the front lines. Guterres called on governments, organizations, and businesses to join the initiative and take concrete steps to advance gender equality. However, Sima Bahos, Executive Director of United Nations Women, underscored the urgency of gender equality and decreasing obstacles in its path. She emphasized that women must be central to decision-making, citing evidence that when women participate in peace negotiations, outcomes are broader, more inclusive, and sustainable. She highlighted global crises from economic instability to democratic erosion and reaffirmed that gender equality must remain a top priority. Let's talk about International Women's Day 2025 in Nigeria, political and economic inclusion. In Nigeria, the Senate has committed to ensuring 35% affirmative action for women in parliament.
Women also have to note that their attitude will determine their altitude. We can increase the number of women in parliament by our own by preventing the idea of weaponizing gender. The woman should not be looking at herself as a weaker sex.
Senate President Okonjo-Iweala made this promise during a 3-day event at the National Assembly complex in Abuja, pledging to introduce legislation that removes barriers to women's advancement. The theme for this year's Nigerian celebration, according to the Senate, is economic and political inclusion. Walk the talk. Akpabio emphasized that this commitment aligns with Nigeria's national gender policy and the United Nations Convention on the elimination of all forms of discrimination against women. He assured that lawmakers would work to remove socioeconomic barriers and hindering women's progress. SOT. In the meantime, Minister of Women Affairs, Hajiya Iman Suleiman Ibrahim highlighted President Bola Tinubu's support for women's empowerment, citing an increased budget allocation for the Ministry of Women Affairs. She urged women to continue advocating for gender equality and policy reforms.
Can't do without our men. We need them to support us, but we just need that, balanced approach to problem solving, balanced approach to providing solution. Because even children these days are saying that they want to be on the table. Talk about women who represent over 50% of our population. Nigerian women were leading in every industry. I can commit to ensuring that we continue to strengthen access to finance.
Ministry of Women Affairs. Director of Administration in the office of the Senate leader, Mrs. Tabitha Salah, praised the National Assembly's effort in enacting pro-women legislation. However, she called for swift action on pending gender equality bills.
International Women's Day responsibility being held, by the Senate. And I'm happy that the Minister for Women Affairs is also here. We need the resolution of issues. We also need peace to come back. When we are celebrating International Women's Day, we want all the women in the parliament to be present.
Nigeria's First Lady, Oluremi Tinubu, has called for renewed commitment to building a society where every woman and girl can thrive, free from discrimination and limitations. Speaking in commemoration of International Women's Day, Tinubu emphasized this year's theme for all women and girls: rights, equality, empowerment. She honored women globally for their resilience, hard work, and achievements, urging them to cherish and support one another, acknowledging the strength and accomplishments of women across Nigeria and beyond. Tinubu encouraged women to uplift one another, stating, "Let us lift each other up, one woman at a time." The Inter-Party Advisory Council also urged greater female participation in politics and governance. Hajia Zainab A. Ibrahim, the Council's Executive Director of Women Affairs, commended the House of Representatives for proposing a bill that reserves seats for women. Honorable Princess Folashade Olabanji, the National Chairman for the Association of Local Government Vice Chairmen, also praised Nigeria's First Lady, wife to Nigeria President Oluremi Tinubu, for her efforts in promoting women's inclusion. She advocated raising women's political representation from 35% to 50% and encouraged mothers to guide young girls against negative social influences.
Honestly, I celebrate the First Lady of Nigeria. She's a role model, really, for excellence. I wish we had more women that could also come, and emulate what she's doing across boards. Okay, we're a big nation. The numbers are way up there, and so understanding that we all are interdependent on one another. Don't underestimate the power of one person affecting the other. And so it's not until it is so big that you feel you can make an impact in your community, no matter how little. If you really set out that you want to make a difference or be a positive change wherever you are, I think it goes a long way to helping the overall numbers. He talked about the 35%. We're nowhere near there. We should be at about 50 right now, but in Nigeria, I think we're between 10 and 15 and keeps going up and down. And God help us along the way. I still would see myself maybe the old school. My parents were very tough disciplinarian and all that, and I think till today it still affects me. Even sometimes I don't realize my age when talking with older people. I still will be like I'm that little girl within me, being cautious on what to do, what not to do, even what to say. And I remember way back in US, and my boss would tell me, "You're no longer in Africa, talk to me, I don't bite," because I still had that fright, So the way we raise our children it goes back to letting some of us know that first ministry, the parenting, it starts from the home. And these days we have a lot of missing in action parents that the early nurturing and all that is not there, and so you see everybody, the peer pressure. And
Lagos State also mentioned its commitment to gender equality at a Lagos State International Women's Day celebration at Mobolaji Johnson Arena. Onikon Governor Babajide Sanwo-Olu reaffirmed his administration's commitment to empowering women.
For us to ensure that the gender equality is not just a lip service, that Teams Plus agenda, the plus in the Teams is gender equality, access to our women, and it's something that we deliberately put in our economic policy for everyone to see.
He emphasized the importance of gender inclusiveness and pledged that Lagos State would continue to implement policies that advance women's participation in governance, business, and society. Of International Women's Day, briefly, International Women's Day has been observed annually on March 8th for more than a century, inspired by the struggles of suffragists advocating for women's rights, including the right to vote. It was first celebrated in 1911. The United Nations officially recognized the day in 1977, and several countries, including China, Russia, and Uganda, now observe it as a public holiday. Despite significant progress, gender inequality remains an ongoing challenge. The fight for women's rights continues as women around the world strive for equal opportunities, representation, and freedom from discrimination. As the world marks International Women's Day 2025, the call for gender equality is louder than ever. While progress has been made, challenges persist. The systemic change requires unwavering commitment. From the United Nations Gender Equality Clarion call to Nigeria's affirmative action pledge, efforts are on the way to forge a more inclusive world where women and girls can thrive. The International Women's Day serves as both a celebration and a reminder that the journey towards equality is far from over. It is a collective responsibility to advocate, act, and drive change for a future where all women and girls are empowered. Mognable. Thanks for watching us today and for joining us on our journey of enlightenment. Mognable, the vehicle of enlightenment.